Well, this is normally the silly season, isn't it? When we're sort of swamped by stories about kind of gay penguins and host paper plants. But this year, the world is blowing up. We've had Syria, Iraq, Iran, Israel, sort of with Gaza, Russia, Ukraine. Now talk of the Taliban making ground in Afghanistan, and now Libya. So, James, what's going on in Libya? There's been some pretty catastrophic
I think you see in Libya that the chaos that has been enveloping the country post-Gaddafi is worsening by the day. You've now got the situation where rival factions are fighting over control of Benghazi airport, which is reducing the amount of aid that can come into the country. And you've also got a situation where even petrol stations won't open because it's too dangerous. And if you cut off petrol supplies to people, a country grinds to a halt pretty quickly. I think it's kind of revealing of what's happened in Libya, of just how uncertain we are about what to do with these societies in the Middle East. So we go into Libya to stop Gaddafi doing what he was doing in support of the uprising. The regime falls, Gaddafi is hunted down and then killed, but we don't know what to do afterwards. And I think what we're seeing in Libya now is that question playing out.
As I understand it with Libya, there really was no game plan. There was no thought put into what would happen afterwards. It was an end in itself. Because I suppose it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen. I think
we got into a situation of stopping Gaddafi going into Benghazi became the goal, and also became an end game of it all. And so that was done, and that almost certainly did stop a massacre. But we then weren't prepared to put kind of large amounts of boots on the ground afterwards to try and pacify the country, to try and help a new government come into being, and everything has slipped back from then on. And what you're seeing is a dictator keeps lots of tensions within a country pent up, and so all of the tensions that built up during Gaddafi's rule are now spilling out.
James, what do you think of this story that in the Sunday Telegraph here, that families may sue Putin over the jet crash? Is that a good thing, or was it
I don't know whether this legally will work, but I think what it's on to is that the only thing that is going to make Putin think twice, I think personally, is something that affects him and his family. He's now one of the wealthiest men in the world. His family all like to live overseas. One of his children lived in Holland. She's had to leave her house because of public outrage, understandably there, seeing as more than 100 Dutch citizens died in this plane crash, or this plane shooting down, I should say. So I do think that these sanctions will need to be targeted at Putin personally to make him think twice. I wonder legally whether they'll be able to pull this off.
Now, David, perhaps you can explain to us this story about fracking, which sort of sounds pretty exciting from our point of view. The new minister, Matt Hancock, has been saying yes, he wants these fracking companies to come to England, and yes, he wants it all to begin here, and he's going to sweep away sort of various problems. How actually feasible is it to sweep away all the planning laws and regulations and let fracking happen?
Well, I think the latest round of licensing is the sort of biggest one for 6 years or thereabouts, and it's a test of what the government has already done to try and simplify the planning situation. So the Environment Agency is trying to reduce waiting times for low risk assessments from 12 weeks, or is it 14 weeks? Yes, 14 weeks to 2 weeks. So this round of licensing will be a test of whether that is successful or not, whether the Environment Agency can deliver what it's supposed to be doing. Moreover, there are still, despite all the changes that have been brought in today, I think by my count 14 separate legislative acts and regulatory directives, both national and international, that apply to each and every shell application. That's obviously a great burden of regulation. If you talk to people companies who are trying to provide exploratory drilling facilities in the north or south of England, they talk about this burden, shrug their shoulders, say we'll just get on with it, and they recognise that it's actually quite useful for them to have all these loops to go through, because it theoretically defeats the green arguments against them. In terms of whether this can work, I think that there was an application last week in Wisborough Green in West Sussex, which was denied on one of the chief reasons was that there was going to be too much traffic going through a rural area. This highlights, I think, what the major impediment to shale is in Britain, that the infrastructure isn't capable of actually moving
the roads and bridges and all that
the
sort of
roads
thing.
And bridges. And people always talk about the American example. The key distinction between America and Britain is not actually their size, it's the infrastructure. In America you get massive freight trains shipping all of this stuff to and from the fracking wells. In Britain you've got little spindly country roads.
And in America, presumably, you can be in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
So the test for shale enthusiasts here, as we all are, is do you want it in your village? Are you prepared to have it in your village?